The text came at 11:47 on a Friday night. Not a call, a text, which somehow made it worse. Mom's aide, Rosario, typing with one hand because the other was probably holding my mother's. Claire, you should come. She's asking for you. I think tonight might be the night. I was still in my scrubs from a double shift at the pediatric ward. I hadn't even taken off my shoes. I grabbed my keys and drove the 40 minutes to my mother's house in Glendale with the radio off, the way you do when you're trying to hold yourself together by not letting anything else in. My sister Dana's car was in the driveway. I noticed it the way you notice something that isn't wrong exactly, but isn't right either. Dana lived 20 minutes closer to Mom than I did. She'd been talking for weeks about how she could barely manage the drive, how her back was acting up, how her kids had school in the morning. But there she was, parked at the curb at midnight on a Friday, every light in the house blazing. I found her in Mom's home office, not the bedroom, where Mom had been sleeping in a hospital bed we'd rented 3 months ago when the ovarian cancer stopped responding to treatment. The office Mom's private space, the room with the locked filing cabinet and the framed photo of her and Dad on their honeymoon in Savannah. Dana was at the desk. A man I'd never seen before sat across from her. He had a briefcase open on his knee and a notary seal on a stamp pad beside him. Mom was in her wheelchair next to the desk, her head listing slightly to one side, her eyes half open. "What is this?" I said from the doorway. Dana looked up. She didn't look guilty. That was the thing I keep coming back to. Even now, she didn't look guilty at all. She looked like someone who'd been interrupted doing something completely reasonable. "Mom wanted to make some updates to her trust," Dana said. "We've been talking about it for a while. At midnight. She asked me to come tonight, didn't you, Mom?" My mother's head turned toward the sound of my voice. "Claire." Her voice was barely above a breath. The morphine patch on her arm was the largest dose the hospice team had prescribed, one we'd only just moved up to 2 days ago. "I'm here, Mom." I crossed the room and crouched beside the wheelchair, taking her hand. It was cold. Her fingernails had the faint blue tint I recognized from work, from the patients we knew weren't coming back. "What's going on?" "She's lucid," Dana said, from somewhere above me. She was very clear about what she wanted. "She can barely keep her eyes open. Clarity comes and goes. The gentleman here has been very patient. Mom, you were just telling us about the property on Fairview, remember? How you wanted to restructure things, so the management was centralized." Mom's lips moved. I leaned closer. She wasn't saying anything coherent. She was saying my name, over and over, very quietly. I stood up and looked at the documents on the desk. It was a trust amendment, 6 pages, dense with legal language, and at the bottom of the last page, a signature line with my mother's name typed beneath it. I read fast, the way you learn to read charts at 2 a.m. when you're running on 4 hours of sleep and a patient is crashing. The amendment removed me as co-trustee of my mother's living trust. It transferred sole management authority to Dana. It reclassified the Fairview Avenue rental property, the one that had been generating income for Mom's care costs, as Dana's personal property outright, not part of the trust at all. And it added a clause, buried in paragraph 4, that any future contest of the amendment would result in the contestant forfeiting their share of the remaining estate. I put the papers back down very carefully. "You wrote this," I said. "Mom and I discussed it with her estate attorney." "This isn't from her estate attorney. Gerald Marsh has been Mom's attorney for 15 years. This notary isn't from his office." I looked at the man with the briefcase. He had the expression of someone who was very much regretting whatever he'd been paid for this. "Who are you?" "I'm a commissioned notary. I was contacted through a..." "She can't give informed consent right now. She's on a 75 microgram fentanyl patch and oral morphine every 4 hours. She doesn't know what year it is." I turned back to Dana. "If you get her to sign this, it's elder abuse. It's financial exploitation. It's a felony." Dana's face went tight. That's a dramatic way to describe a mother updating her trust with one of her daughters. "Dana." I kept my voice level, the same way I talk to parents in the ER when I have to explain something they don't want to hear. "Don't do this. I have her best interests at heart." Which is more than I can say for someone who spent the last 6 months working double shifts and showing up here 3 times a week to do what, exactly? Read to her, hold her hand. None of that pays the property taxes, Claire. None of that keeps the roof on. None of that steals from a dying woman, either. The notary closed his briefcase. I think maybe I should come back at a different time. There won't be a different time. Dana's voice cracked slightly. Mom, just sign. It's just a signature. It doesn't change anything important. I'll explain everything later. Rosario, I called. The aide appeared in the doorway within seconds. She'd clearly been hovering just outside. Can you call the hospice nurse on duty? Please. Tell her Mom needs to be seen tonight. I looked at the notary. And you should leave. I'll be remembering your name from that stamp. He left. Dana sat in Mom's office chair for a long moment, the unsigned papers in front of her, and then she gathered them into a folder and put them in her bag without looking at me. She kissed Mom on the forehead, very gently, as if she were simply a devoted daughter stopping by late. You've always thought you were better than me, she said quietly, on her way to the door. You and Mom both. That's not true. She left without answering. Mom passed away 4 days later. She never fully woke up again, but she knew I was there. She'd squeeze my hand when I spoke to her. And once, on the third morning, she opened her eyes clearly and looked at me for almost a full minute before drifting off again. I told her she didn't need to worry. I told her I loved her. I told her that whatever she'd left behind, I would take care of it. I didn't know then how literally she'd taken that promise. The funeral was at a small Methodist church in Pasadena that Mom had attended since before I was born. Dana gave a beautiful eulogy. She talked about Mom's garden, her cornbread recipe, the way she laughed at her own jokes before she even got to the punchline. People cried. Dana cried. She is, I'll give her this, an extraordinary crier, the kind that makes everyone around her feel the loss more sharply. Like her grief is a tuning fork for the room. She barely spoke to me at the reception. I watched her work the room, accepting condolences, and I thought about the folder in her bag, and the unsigned papers and the man with the notary stamp, and I let myself feel the full, exhausting sadness of it, not just losing Mom, losing the sister I thought I had. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter from a probate court in Los Angeles County. Dana had filed a trust amendment with the court. It was dated the night she'd come to the house. It had my mother's signature on the last page. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and read it 3 times. Then I called Gerald Marsh. Gerald had been practicing estate law for 31 years. He had an office in Pasadena, full of dying plants that he claimed were minimalist, and a habit of pausing so long before he spoke that new clients sometimes thought the call had dropped. He drafted my parents' trust when I was in middle school. He'd amended it when Dad died. He knew my mother's signature the way a doctor knows a patient's chart. I was wondering when you'd call, he said, when I told him what had happened. You knew? I suspected. Your mother came to see me, Claire, about 5 months ago, right after her second round of treatment failed. I pulled my key out of the ignition and sat very still. She was worried, he said carefully, about what Dana might do when things got difficult. She'd been seeing certain patterns for a while. The requests for money. The conversations about the Fairview property. She wasn't accusatory, you know how she was. She always gave people the benefit of the doubt. But she wanted to be careful. What did you do? What she asked me to do. Another long pause. I think you should come in, Claire. There are some things you need to see. His office smelled like old paper and coffee, the same way it always had. He shook my hand and gave me a glass of water I didn't drink, and then he laid 3 documents on the table between us. The first was the trust amendment Dana had filed. Gerald slid it to one side. Executed under suspicious circumstances. Your mother's signature is present, but given the testimony we have about her condition that night, and the notary's non-affiliation with this office or any firm your mother authorized, it's contestable. He tapped the notary stamp. I've already spoken to this gentleman. He's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable people tend to be forthcoming. The second document was a statement from Rosario. 3 pages, describing what she had observed the night Dana came with the papers. The medication log. My mother's condition. The fact that Dana had asked Rosario to take the evening off, and that Rosario had declined and called me instead. Rosario kept a personal log, Gerald said. Dates, times, anything she felt was notable. She'd been keeping it since March. Your mother asked her to. I looked at him. Your mother trusted Rosario completely, he said simply. And she was a very thorough woman. The third document was a trust restatement. Not an amendment, a complete restatement of the entire trust, superseding all previous versions. It was dated 5 months ago. It had my mother's signature, witnessed by 2 people, notarized by Gerald's own staff. It had been filed with the court the same afternoon it was signed, time-stamped at 4:22 p.m. on a Tuesday. I read the relevant sections twice. Then Gerald read them aloud to me anyway, because I think he wanted to hear them said in that quiet office, in front of the dying plants, where the words could settle into the air and become real. To my daughter Dana, the trust provided a specific bequest. The contents of the savings account ending in 7,741, the pearl earrings that had been Dana's grandmother's, and a sum of $40,000, designated explicitly and in full. The language that followed was my mother's. I could hear her voice in every clause. I love my daughter Dana. I also know her. This amount is given freely and with no strings attached, because I believe in her capacity to build something good with it. It is given now, here, clearly and deliberately, so that there can be no confusion later about my intentions or my awareness. The remainder of the trust, the house, the Fairview property, the investment accounts, the personal belongings, not specifically allocated, went to me. There was also an irrevocable charitable subtrust, funded with a separate account Dana had not known about, designated for a scholarship at the community college Mom had attended at 42 years old when she'd gone back to finish her degree while working the night shift at a distribution center and raising 2 daughters alone. The scholarship was for single mothers returning to school. It was funded for 15 years. There's one more thing, Gerald said. He turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was a video file. He pressed play. Mom was sitting in this same chair, in this same office, 5 months ago. She was thin, the treatment had taken a lot from her by then, but her eyes were sharp and clear, and she was wearing the blue cardigan she'd had for 20 years, the one with the button missing at the cuff that she'd kept meaning to replace. She looked directly into the camera. "Hi, baby," she said. "If you're watching this, then things went the way I was afraid they might. I'm sorry you had to go through it. I want you to know that I knew. Not everything. I didn't know exactly what Dana would do, or when, but I knew the shape of it. I've known the shape of it for a long time, and I kept hoping I was wrong, the way you keep hoping a storm will turn before it hits." She paused. She folded her hands in her lap the way she always did when she was thinking carefully. "Your sister is not a bad person. I need you to hear that from me, because I know how it feels right now, and I know what you're thinking. She's scared. She's been scared her whole life in a way that I never fully understood how to reach. The money she borrowed and didn't pay back, the things she said about the house, that's fear talking. That's someone who never learned to trust that enough would be enough. I want you to take care of yourself first. Put on your own oxygen mask, as they say. The house is yours, the Fairview income is yours, and you've earned every cent of it, not by being the favorite, because I didn't have one, but by showing up when showing up was hard. By sleeping in that chair by my bed when you had a shift at 6 in the morning. By never once making me feel like a burden. The scholarship is for the women who remind me of who I was at 42, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. I want that to keep going. And for Dana, I left her a letter. Gerald has it. I hope she reads it. I hope someday she and you can find your way back to each other, because you're all the family either of you has left now. But that's for later. That's for when she's ready." She reached toward the camera. The video ended. Gerald closed the laptop. I became aware, after a moment, that I was crying, not dramatically, not the way Dana cries, but the steady, quiet way that means something has reached the part of you that you keep protected. "She came to me the day after her oncologist told her the second round hadn't worked," Gerald said. "She said she wanted to do this, while she was absolutely, unambiguously clear. Her words. She also said he allowed himself a small smile, that she wanted documentation so thorough that a first-year law student could defend it. That sounds like her. She was a very thorough woman," he said again. The meeting with Dana happened 10 days later. She came with an attorney, a younger man, aggressive in the particular way of someone who charges by the confidence rather than the hour. Gerald had suggested I bring someone as well, but I came alone. I sat across the table from my sister for the first time since the funeral, and tried to see the girl I'd grown up with, the one who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who'd called me crying the night her first marriage ended. She looked exhausted. She looked, if I'm being honest, like someone who already knew. Gerald walked them through the trust restatement, the filing date, the video, Rosario's log, the notary's statement. Dana's attorney leaned forward periodically, raising procedural objections that Gerald answered with the patient precision of someone swatting flies in slow motion. When Gerald finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. "She planned this," Dana said. Not accusatory. Almost wondering. "She was protecting her estate," Gerald said. "And you, in a way. The trust amendment you filed is now a matter of public record, as is the evidence surrounding how it was obtained. Whether that becomes something more serious is largely determined by what happens in this room." Dana's attorney started to speak. Dana put her hand on his arm to stop him. She was looking at me. "I owe people money," she said. "A lot of it. I didn't want you to know how bad it was. You could have told me. I was ashamed." She pressed her lips together. "And I thought if I could just get the Fairview income sorted out, get control of the property, I could fix it myself without anyone knowing. I thought Mom would have wanted that. Mom would have wanted you to ask for help. Mom would have made me feel." She stopped, started again. I know she would have helped me. I know that." She looked down at the table. I just couldn't stand the look on her face. The disappointment. "She wasn't disappointed in you, Dana. She was worried about you. There's a difference." Her attorney was very quiet now, his earlier energy entirely gone. Gerald slid an envelope across the table. "My mother's handwriting on the front. For Dana, when she's ready." Dana looked at it for a long moment without touching it. Then she picked it up and put it in her bag. "I'm not going to contest it," she said. Her voice was flat, wrung out. "I know what I did. I know what I tried to do." She glanced at Gerald, then back at me. "Is the other thing going to? The district attorney's office has been made aware of the circumstances," Gerald said carefully. "Whether they proceed is not within my control or Claire's. Cooperation and a demonstrable good faith settlement tend to influence those decisions." She nodded once. Her attorney closed his notebook. They left without any of the threatened litigation, without the procedural challenges, without any of the noise. Just my sister, walking down the hallway with her mother's letter in her bag, and the particular silence of someone who has run out of moves. I sat in Gerald's office for a while after. The way you sit somewhere when you're not ready to go back to the rest of your life yet. The house in Glendale is mine now. I've kept Mom's garden, though I'm a much worse gardener than she was. Her roses are struggling under my care in a way that feels like a metaphor I'm choosing not to examine. I converted the small back bedroom into a study, filled it with her books, and I sit in there sometimes in the evenings when the pediatric ward has taken everything I have and I need somewhere quiet to refill. The Fairview property income goes into a separate account. I use part of it to cover Rosario's salary. She comes twice a week now, ostensibly to help with the house. But mostly we drink coffee, and she tells me stories about my mother that I hadn't heard, stories from the years before I was old enough to know her as a whole person rather than just a mother. The scholarship has its first 3 recipients. Single mothers, all of them, going back to finish what they started. Their names are on a small plaque in the community college's financial aid office, just below a line that reads, "In memory of a woman who believed that starting over is not the same as starting from nothing." Dana and I don't talk often. She called me 4 months after the meeting, late on a Sunday evening. She said she'd read the letter. She said she'd started seeing a therapist. She said she was sorry, not in the tactical way she used to apologize when we were kids, the way designed to end the conversation rather than resolve it. She said it the way you say something when you've turned it over enough times to know it's true. I didn't tell her it was fine, because it wasn't, not yet. But I told her I was glad she called. I told her I still had the number of the debt consolidation counselor Mom had found for her and kept in a folder in her filing cabinet, because of course Mom had kept that. Of course, she had already done that research. Dana cried. I let her. There's a hard thing about being the daughter who showed up. Nobody warns you that it doesn't feel like winning. The house is just a house. The money is just money. What you carry forward is the weight of knowing that your mother spent the last clear months of her life quietly, carefully building a wall between her children and the worst versions of themselves, and that she did it without bitterness, without drama, without saying a word to me about it until she was gone. The pen Mom used to sign her trust restatement is in the top drawer of her desk, which is now my desk. It's an ordinary ballpoint, the kind you buy 12 to a pack. I don't keep it there as a symbol of anything. I keep it there because it was hers, because her handwriting is on that last page, clear and deliberate, and entirely herself, and because some days I need to be reminded what it looks like to prepare carefully for the worst while still hoping the worst won't come. She was right that it would. She was also right that hope is worth keeping, even when you're being practical about the alternative. Dana came over last month to help me clear out the last of Mom's clothes for donation. We didn't talk about the trust, or the documents, or the midnight visit to the office. We talked about the blue cardigan, whether to keep it or let it go. We stood in Mom's bedroom for a long time holding it between us, that old soft fabric with the missing button at the cuff, and eventually we folded it together and put it back on the shelf. Some things you don't donate. Some things you just keep because they belong to someone who loved you, and that turns out to be enough. Mom knew Dana would come for the money when she got desperate enough. She also knew I'd come to say goodbye. She built her last months around that knowledge, not with anger, but with the quiet precision of a woman who had worked the night shift and raised 2 daughters and gone back to school at 42 and understood, better than most, that love without structure is just a wish. What Connor's father knew, what my mother knew, what every parent seems to understand at the end and struggle to communicate before it, that showing up is not a small thing. That presence is the inheritance that matters. That money can be taken, forged, litigated, disputed, but the memory of someone sitting beside you when you were afraid is not transferable, cannot be amended, does not require a notary. Mom left Dana $40,000 and a letter. She left me everything else. I think she knew which one would be harder to carry.